Welcome.
Good morning.
Today is June the 18th. Actually, it's not June the
It's
18th.
Friday, June 18th, 2021.
Thank you, Watch. This is the Sunday lesson for Sunday, June 20th, which is Father's Day. And so we're very happy to be here to deliver a message about love and Father's love. And I'm going to start with a reading from Ernest Holmes, who founded our Centers for Spiritual Living. And the title of it, this is an affirmative prayer. The title of it is, I partake of the divine bounty. Realizing that the spirit within me is God, the living Spirit Almighty, being fully conscious of this divine presence as the sustaining principle of my life, I open my thought to its influx. I open my consciousness to its outpouring. I let that mind be in me that was also in Christ Jesus. That is the mind of truth, the mind of God, carrying with it all the power of the infinite. I know and understand that good alone is real. I know that silently I am drawing into my experience today and every day an ever increasing measure of truth and beauty, of goodness, of harmony. Everything I do, say, and think is quickened into right action, into productive action, into increased action. My visible good already exists. My faith, drawing upon this invisible good, causes that which was unseen to become visible. All there is mine now. All there ever was or ever can be is mine now. And so it is.
Beautiful, beautiful piece of work.
Yeah, so what he means by that is that we are, every cell of our being is also imbued with this thing called life, which is this thing that we call God. And so everything is energy, everything is intertwined. And we are constantly creating our reality based on our thinking, our beliefs, our feelings. And so everything is already ours in essence, not in substance, but in essence. And so our job is to know that, to draw more of the substance into our life.
You know, when you look at an octopus and you watch that as they have different emotional reactions to their environment, their colors all change. They have thousands and thousands of color patterns.
Mhm.
They don't plan on having those colors. Those are colors that are automatic to their experience. But I was thinking that we probably have all the same color changes too. We have them in
With
the
our emotions.
our
Yeah.
emotions. And if one could read the colors of our emotion, one could see that emotional body that is around us all of the time. That is often not like what we're talking about or not what we're saying, but it's another whole phenomenon.
Exactly. Take, for example, love.
Ah, that's an easy one.
Yeah, that's an easy one. And, especially for fathers, for some fathers, it may come naturally. But, fathers don't have the advantage of the hormone oxytocin that mothers have. Mothers get it in childbirth, especially natural childbirth. They get more of it if they breastfeed the baby. It's the body's way of making sure the mother bonds with this baby and loves it, loves it. Often mothers love their baby in utero,
Mhm.
just beyond explanation. Fathers don't get that oxytocin boost.
Now, so fathers often look at this little guy and say, or little girl and say, "Oh, what do I do now? What is this? And how do I relate to it?" And so loving is something that actually is learned for them, or learning how to be with the child in a way that allows them to feel comfortable and connected so that love can evolve. And so that love is not as natural, if you will, for males because they don't have what I would call the hormonal jump. There's a hormonal jump that comes with love. And that usually gives you somewhere between 6 to 18 months that you can feel good about a person no matter what they do. And after that 6 to 18 months is usually when a relationship has developed the skills to thrive, or when the person say, I don't know what it was, but this isn't working and I want out. The trouble with that is in Father's Day is that after 18 months, you can't say, you can, but it doesn't work very well to say I want out. It's actually, from what I've heard, it's a lifetime commitment.
And also, that 18 months, that's about when you start hearing that no word
Oh,
from
yeah, yeah.
babies.
So at the
They
very
enter the terrible
at the
twos.
very point that the child starts to really rebel, the hormonal bond has been broken already. And at that point, then there's a couple of options. You can have another child and sell the one you've got. Uh, but that can really be the difficult time. So learning how to love is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today.
And it's also a part of our spiritual evolution. I
Yeah.
believe we are here to love and to learn to love in a greater sense. The Buddhist love practice and study and practice having compassion. Compassion means caring about all other sentient beings, animals,
Mhm.
humans, and it they have taken it to such a high level that when we measure their brains when they are practicing loving kindness in their meditation, their brain waves are off the chart because it is something that can be practiced and learned
But
and
it's a
enhanced.
learned skill.
Right.
But the Buddhist monks go to Buddhist school,
Yes. For a
and they
their
don't
whole life.
right, they don't go to Buddhist school and sit down in front of the Buddhist leader or teacher and say, "I've already got all the answers. I've already got this figured out. I'm just here because I like the outfit." No,
Right.
I mean, and it's true. If you think about love as something that we're often told is love is natural, love is ever present, love is always, love is there, and it just turn inside, and you'll find it. Well, the truth is that that may be true that it exists inside, but learning what to do and how to deal with it and how to work with it and how to have it be an expression that is for your own good, that's a different thing. You could look at it another way because it's Father's Day and because I'm a guy, I'll use a different metaphor. When I get out and drive my car, it has somewhere between probably 100 and 300 horsepower, depending on how much money I spend. It's always there. It's always available, and there's no reason why I can't use it. How I use it is a learned skill,
Mm.
and being able to power that car through to where I want to go and carry the people that I love with me, or how to crash it in 10 seconds is always a choice. But there's a learning curve. And if you remember when you first learned how to drive and how awkward it was, I would say learning how to love is just as awkward. In fact, when we were early pubescents and fell in love the first time, we would know how awkward it was.
Exactly. Now, some fathers have a more natural
Affinity,
start
yeah.
with love and affinity, and that's largely because they learned it in their family of origin. They came from a family, and especially in the olden days when people had 12 kids or so, the children grew up with lots of babies, and they learned how they were valued. When nowadays, when people have one or two children, nobody grows up around babies, and so they can be strange creatures when they're born to new fathers and mothers. But
Well, they're born without an access code.
I know.
They don't have a remote.
No direction
There's no
manual.
direction. There's no remote. Uh, and I would love it when mine was born if there had been a password. You know.
Much less a,
Yeah, yeah,
a direction,
yeah.
a direction manual. Well, that is true. And yet, a father's love, I mean, they will lay down their lives for their children, for their family, and often do, and even for their nation. So, we're not saying a father's love is not as great as a mother's love.
It's different.
It definitely is. It's just different,
Mhm.
and and I think it's a little easier on us if we admit that and
Yeah.
understand it and know that even in our own loving, it's something that we learn how to do. Uh, I wasn't. I'm sure you weren't nearly as good first time in a relationship, whether that was a teenager in your 20s, with how to love and be with a person and speak your truth and be able to say what you really like and need and don't want. All that's part of loving, just like setting limits that a father does.
And it's all part of learning. When I hear couples, because we've done a lot of couples therapy and a lot of individual therapy too, as having been therapists before we were ministers, you would have this common conversation. Well, you should know what I need. You should,
If you love me,
if
you
you
would
love me, you
know.
would know
Yeah,
what I want.
right.
As if somehow learning those things isn't necessary because love conquers all. Well, love does conquer but one needs to learn how to direct it and how to ask a good question and how to get your needs met by being intelligent and better educated in the area of relationship.
Right. One of my favorite books when we were doing therapy, and I can't remember the author, but it was called Love is Never Enough.
Mhm.
And it was written by a psychologist or psychiatrist who'd done a lot of couples therapy. And so loving a person is not enough. You also need to learn how to communicate. You also need to learn how to um, interact with each other so that you both get your needs met, both get your desires met in areas of friendships and socializing, in the area of how we run the home, in the area of sexuality, in the area of intimacy. There are lots of areas. Then you add the area of children. That's a lot of areas to learn how to communicate and meet each other's
So I
needs.
want to draw this back to spiritual growth and how I want to tie it to spiritual growth. Is a lot of people believe that if they are spiritual, that is, they meditate, they have spiritual values, they believe in a spiritual life, that they don't need these other things. And the trouble is that by believing that, you're putting an awful lot of weight on a body of knowledge that does not automatically then compute into solving problems or resolving them or making love work. And the relationships that I see that work the best are people that have a lot in common, that care a lot about each other, and have developed a lot of skills, and are able to pursue a spiritual direction together that is meaningful and rich. And that spiritual connection, there's nothing like it. I mean, I can't imagine being in a relationship with anyone other than Judith that didn't have that kind of spiritual hunger, that kind of spiritual appetite.
Mm.
And that spiritual appetite and hunger is huge, but also being able to communicate what you want, what you need it, when you want it, is just as important. And so when I talk to people who say, I want a spiritual partner, what else do you want? I don't care, just so long as they're spiritual. Would it be nice if they had a job? Well, I guess, you know, so yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of things that go into, and the same thing is when we're talking about Father's Day is true with parenting, is that parenting requires skills, but it also requires something else that we started talking about, and I want to just make sure we don't leave unaddressed. You can't know how to do it, no matter how much you think you know, and no matter how good you are at it, you are going to make more mistakes probably parenting than you've made anywhere else in your life. And you're going to know that later on. And if you don't know it later on, your kids will bring it
We'll
back to
tell
you.
you.
They will remember. They remember the time that they were in diapers way too long because you were still watching that television program waiting for the commercial.
We're fortunately of an age where we get to enjoy our grown children, and it is such a pleasure for all of our grown children.
Yeah.
But it's also, they will tell you
Yeah.
the times they remember.
Yeah. When they
It
were
says,
severely
why did
abused.
you do such and such?
That's right.
So they will often remember as a real wounding your very worst behavior, which is, you want to be reminded of all the good things you did.
That's when you quickly go to, if you're spiritual, to a spiritual phrase or to a mantra or to something where you change the subject. But don't you know
How's
God?
that working for you?
Don't you know that God in me, as me, is me, working through me and you too, and was right from the very beginning. And at that point, you have to duck and cover because your kid has just lost all spiritual interest. It does help when your kids, though, now have kids.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
very
when
helpful.
when
That's very
my
helpful.
kid had a kid, the tenor of everything changed. It was like, Dad, I think I understand now. Yeah. I had no idea that this would dominate my entire life 24/7. And if there were more hours, it would dominate more than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's especially helpful when they have more than one child,
Yes. In fact, I
because
recommend it.
again, that owner's manual, just when you have the first one all figured out, you have another one, and this one is totally different, and the way you father and love them is totally different. What works? So that's an amazing experience too.
So love is a constant. Love is forever evolving and developing and welling up inside of each of us and is available to be tapped into and used, much like the power from an automobile or from an electric motor on your blender. But you have to
Mm.
decide what you're going to feed it, what you're going to do with it. You're going to have to use common sense, but more than that, you're going to have to be willing to be an explorer. And the hardest thing about love, which I think is also true with parenting, is that the more you know that you need to know, the harder you work, the more you can work. And all of that at the end of the day can leave you overwhelmed or leave you with a sense of, you know what? I'm not in this by myself. I and the Father are one. We are
Mm,
connected. There is a greater purpose, and that purpose is me working through caring, loving, giving, sharing, supporting, and encouraging life in me and in everyone around me. What an opportunity to do that. But it can't be an expectation that you're gonna score an A every day.
right.
There's about 2,500 midterms.
As a matter of fact, because in my case, I loved in many of your cases too, I loved my father so much, and he was such a powerful figure in my life and in our family's life. They also are the ones that can wound you the most, and you don't forget those wounds. And so, just like we said, your children remember your actions. You remember your father's actions too that wounded you or you felt wounded. And so I just would like to remind you if you have not yet forgiven them for not being perfect, you really you'd want to free yourself up a lot by doing that. When you go through an exercise of forgiveness, you just really sort of let that all go. Before you let it go, you're hanging on to it. It's like, I can't really love you fully because you did this, that, and the other, and wrecked my life, no doubt, or something like that, you know. And when you decide, look, my father was not a perfect human being, he did the best he could, given what he knew and understood. He was trying to protect me, he was trying to guide me, or he was misguided, whatever. He could have been misguided. And you have to just forgive him
Yeah.
and let that go so that you can fully love him and fully love the good things that he did.
If you're really stuck on that too, and it can happen that one of the things that can really keep you from your spiritual growth is harboring a resentment or an anger or a lot of hurt around an incident that happened. Something you can do, I would recommend, if you can find somebody that will support you, that they be with you when you do this, and sit in a chair, and in the other chair across from you, imagine that that person that you're having trouble with is sitting there, and tell
Mm,
that person exactly what you feel, how you feel, what hurt you, and how bad it was for you. Now, get up and get into the other chair
mm,
and speak back to that person, from the father, the mother, the daughter, the son, whoever you are, from that position. What would you say? I have seen more healing take place as a result of that than lots and lots and lots of years of work that people have done, because it isn't until literally you wear the other person's shoes. It isn't until you've said what you need to say that you can actually hear what that person might have to say. And
that's
what
exactly
amazes me
right.
is, and I've done this 1,000 times as a therapist, is how accurately the person playing the role can play the role, because they do have an intuitive knowing of that other person at a much deeper level than even they
Mhm,
realize.
mhm.
And so that's another way to begin to clear out that kind of baggage so that you can then move into your own spiritual growth, your own spiritual gardening.
Exactly. Because we do evolve spiritually when our ability to love, as I said earlier, and part of loving is forgiving, because none of us are perfect, and none of us love perfectly. We're here trying to learn
Some of us are closer than others.
how to love, yes, but none of us have got it all down, and so. I think our whole journey here is about love, and parenting is a wonderful opportunity to learn it, to practice it, to improve it.
I think another thing I want to share today too is that with the business of parenting, but also probably in almost every other area of your life, there's a tendency to push or to pull. To push something
Mm,
to make it happen, or to pull something out of. And what I would recommend is more standing still.
mm,
Stand still, breathe, allow yourself to imagine breathing in light and love and joy and hope and understanding and compassion. And imagine, when you stand still, that nothing bad is going to happen if you don't do something, that it's okay not to push or to pull. What we continually do is we push things faster than they want to come, or the best faster than they want to go, or we pull faster than they want to come to us. And because of that, we spend an awful lot more time in resistance than we spend just enjoying that life will unfold before us with choices. And we have to trust that. This is where faith becomes an important issue. If there's something on the table that you would like, you can either do your very best to reach across in front of everyone else, and grab it and hope that you don't get hurt in the process. If you come from my family, you would have been injured. Or you can actually trust that when you make your needs known, someone will help that get to you. But you will notice that after you make the request, it doesn't show up in front of you immediately. It takes time.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, Bob. And you're right. We do think we need to be, we're very results oriented and action oriented, and we think we need to do things when often we just need to observe, understand.
Yeah, I
Um,
think about what we used to hear. I've heard about helicopter parents, which that,
yeah, sure.
and what they're trying to do is they're pushing and pulling the world around their child so that nothing bad happens. And
Mhm.
in fact, most of us have gotten to the age we've gotten to without somebody flying over us guarding everything we did. I know neither of my parents were around when I had BB gun wars with my friends in the field, and
I know someone on Facebook posted a question: "What did you do as a child that you would now consider dangerous?" A lot of things,
yeah,
because we didn't have helicopter parents. But
drinking from a garden hose was reasonable.
but
Yeah.
what I remember was we would tell our parents we were going to the beach. This was in Venezuela, and we did go to the beach. But the beach was adjoined by cliffs of fallen big old coral reef rocks, and we would what we called run the reefs. In other words, we would leap from rock to rock and run as fast as we could along the cliff. Now, if you slipped or fell or didn't make the jump, that coral reef would scratch you up so badly, and it hurt so badly. But we did this all the time, and it was great fun.
That is an amazing. That is amazing because while you were doing that at that age,
You were shooting BB
no,
guns.
no, I was actually we would bicycle from where I lived to Let's River State Park, which was about 60 miles. That would be on city streets
60
and country
miles.
streets, and then I would run the ledge of the park, the
Right.
rock ledge, and jump from rock to rock. If you fell down, it was 1,500 feet. Uh,
Is that all?
odds are pretty good you wouldn't fall up. And we loved to run it at dusk or at dark.
Uh-huh.
And so
Uh-huh.
we
Of
would run it as
course.
fast as we could and then get on our bikes into dark and ride home and tell our parents that we had been someplace else so that they wouldn't get upset.
Yeah, that hardly happens anymore, I
I
think.
know, I know. Yeah,
The
really.
kids don't even play out in their yards very much. So here they do because they have pools and whatnot, which is nice. Well, any rate, so I just want to finish because we're talking about evolving spiritually. And St. Thomas Aquinas said, "My soul has a purpose. It is to love. If I do not fulfill my heart's vocation, I suffer." So, my point here is that we're here to love and evolve to increase our ability to love. And if we don't, we suffer. We
Mhm.
suffer. As a matter of fact, the reason we want to forgive is because if we don't, we suffer. And if we hate instead of love, guess who suffers? Not the person we hate, but how we feel. We're the ones that it even hurts our health. So hating and anger hurts you. It does not hurt the other person. And I know it can be a process. I'm not saying, be a victim and no matter what happens, roll over and say, "Oh, I just love you." But you have to work through that. But you process it by expressing it, by speaking your truth, by speaking truth to power, and then forgiving and letting it go. So it's a process. I would never say anybody should be happy and loving all the time. That doesn't happen here on the earth plane, on the earth school. That we're here to learn how to get to that
Right.
point.
We're really, and I love it, but I can't think of it. Ram Dass said that we're all here just walking each other home. And
Exactly. I love
it can
that.
be a long walk or a short walk. It can be up some pretty high hills and some pretty low ones, and it can be in swamps and deserts. So, but we're still here walking each other home. And in the process of the walking each other home too, we're going to make a lot of mistakes. And what I have seen are some pretty horrible things done and some pretty horrible things that we have to overcome. And I just heard today that the Juneteenth has been approved as a national holiday.
Mhm.
I would
Indeed.
call it a national holy day. And I would say
Mm.
it's a holy day to recognize those who thrived and died and whose families have thrived and continue to thrive. And I would say it's a holy day for us to remember the pain and the struggle and the suffering, but also the strength, the power, and the willingness that people have to continue and to work. There's a lot of forgiveness that's going to need to be addressed in this. A lot of what we're talking about today is going to have to be unfolded and looked at a thousand different ways. And I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like. But I can at least mention it and say that this is, I would say it's a holy day.
I agree. That's June 19th.
Yes.
So we are actually recording this talk a little bit early because on Sunday, June 20th, on Father's Day, we will actually be on an island off Belize where we will be celebrating my son's wedding. My other son and his family are there. Their father is there. And so I would like to salute Bob for his great love and understanding of being with that family and my ex-husband while we celebrate fatherhood and celebrate marriage and love, because that also takes a great deal of wisdom and love and tolerance to be with that.
Well, I'm still
Can't call it
deciding
a
if I'm going to,
combined
still
family.
deciding if I'm going to go or not,
Combined.
even though we are packed. Yeah.
So it will be a special Father's Day.
And Judith is also conducting the wedding. That is, she is officiating.
Yes, I'm
And because she's
officiating the
officiating,
wedding.
this one better last. I don't want any bad marks on your get marrying people record. Yeah.
Well, thank God we live in an era where people can have more than one relationship. They might need practice
Not at
with
the same
different
time.
kinds. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
together if we couldn't. No, not at the same time.
Well, actually, both of us were single. What we did 17, 18, 20-year internships.
Ah, yes, we
Yeah.
did.
And then
Yes,
when
we
you get
did.
done with your internship,
Called a marriage.
yeah, well, there's that, but yeah. So we're going to wrap it up, and I think we'll end with an affirmative prayer. For those of you that don't know, we are the Center for Spiritual Living, and we are a not-for-profit
In Palm Beaches.
in Palm
the Palm
Beaches.
Beaches.
And you can certainly go to our website if you would like to. And
Indeed, and that is CSL, which stands for Center for Spiritual Living, cslpalmbeaches.org. And right on the front page, there's a donate button that will show you how to donate.
Anyway, as much as you would like, as often as you would like, I say to people, just give until it feels good.
Indeed. So may you have a blessed Father's Day, a blessed every day. And shall we end with a prayer?
Let's do that.
Let's do that. We know the truth is that love is the essence of the universe. It is the essence of life, of God, and therefore it is the essence of us.
Nothing can keep us from our good. Nothing can steer us away from the light, the joy, the happiness, and the infinite possibilities that we came here to express, enjoy, and deliver.
We choose to practice love, to be love, to open our hearts and be willing to forgive any past wounds. And we know that as we do so, we are releasing ourselves and becoming better practitioners of love.
We know this to be true. We are grateful that it is true. And together we say,
And so
And
it
so it
is.
is.
Amen.
and thank you for being with us.